The vast command center hummed with activity as Admiral Emma Stone walked through the sliding doors. Screens lined the walls, showing Earth's orbital defenses and the scattered settlements across the solar system. For 5,000 years, humanity had kept to itself, hidden behind layers of signal jamming technology and strict protocols. The Great Silence, they called it. "Admiral, you need to see this." A young officer handed her a data pad, his face pale. Emma's eyes widened. "Confirm." "This and now." "Already did 3 times, it's real." She stared at the reading. For the first time in 5 millennia, an alien signal had broken through Earth's communication blackout. "Get me Captain Reed," she ordered. Captain Jack Reed stood at the viewport of the orbital training station, watching Earth spin below. At 42, he had spent his entire life within the confines of the solar system, like every human since the retreat. History books spoke of a time when humans traveled between stars, but those days were gone, erased by some ancient horror that drove humanity back to its cradle. His comm unit buzzed. "Captain Reed, report to Earth Defense Command immediately. Priority Alpha." 20 minutes later, he strode into Admiral Stone's office. "Jack," Emma said, using his first name despite their formal setting. They had trained together decades ago. "Something impossible just happened." She played the message. Strange sounds filled the room, then shifted to words in an old human language. "The Accord remembers. The debt must be paid." Jack frowned. "The Accord? What's that?" "That's what we need to find out." Emma pulled up a star map. The signal came from here, at the edge of what was once human space. "How do you know it was once our space?" "Because," she said quietly, "I'm one of 12 people who know the full history, the real history." The Earth Council chamber was rarely used. 24 leaders from Earth's unified nation sat around a circular table, faces grim. "We cannot break the silence," Counselor Davis argued. "Our ancestors had good reasons to withdraw from galactic affairs." Admiral Stone stood firm. "The message was sent on frequencies only humans ever used. It references something called the Accord that isn't in our public records. Someone out there knows us and they're calling for help." Council Leader James Wright rubbed his forehead. "Admiral, tell them what you told me." Emma took a deep breath. "The message contains coordinates to a star system called Horizon. 5,000 years ago, it was a human colony." Murmurs broke out around the table. "How do you know this?" someone asked. "Because certain military leaders have always carried the true history, passed down through generations. We maintain the silence, but we remember why it began." She activated a holographic display. "I believe whoever sent this message is connected to our past. We need to investigate." After hours of debate, the Council agreed to a limited mission. 1 ship, minimal crew, strict observation protocols. 3 days later, Captain Reed walked through the gleaming hull of the Harbinger, Earth's most advanced ship. Though humans had not ventured beyond the solar system in millennia, they had never stopped advancing their technology. The Harbinger represented the pinnacle of human engineering, fast, well-armed, and equipped with stealth systems that made it nearly invisible to sensors. Dr. Thomas Gray joined him, carrying a small case. As Earth's leading expert in theoretical, alien communication, he had been the obvious choice for the mission. "Ever met an alien, Captain?" Gray asked, a hint of excitement in his voice. "No one has, not in 5,000 years, Reed replied. "And if things go according to plan, we won't either. We observe, we listen, we come home." "Where's your sense of adventure?" Reed stopped walking. "This isn't an adventure, Doctor. Something scared humanity so badly that we cut ourselves off from the entire galaxy. We should remember that." In her private office, Admiral Stone unlocked a safe hidden behind her desk. Inside was a small device, ancient by modern standards. She activated it and a holographic figure appeared, a woman in uniform from 5 millennia ago. "If you're viewing this," the recording said, "then the contingency has been activated. The Accord has called humanity back to war. You must understand what happened before you decide to answer. Emma watched the full recording, her face growing paler with each passing minute. When it finished, she sat in silence for a long time, before sending a private message to Captain Reed's ship. The Harbinger's engines hummed as the crew prepared for departure. Besides Reed and Gray, there were 10 others: navigation experts, security personnel, and Lieutenant Kate Wilson, a military specialist with a sealed set of orders from Admiral Stone. "Pre-jump checklist complete," announced the navigation officer. "Course to coordinates locked in." Reed settled into the command chair. "Remember, we're observers only. No contact without direct authorization from Earth Command." "And if someone contacts us first?" Gray asked. Reed had no answer for that. The Harbinger rose from Earth's orbital dock, accelerating quickly past the Moon and the Mars outposts. As they approached Jupiter, Reed gave the order to activate the fold space drive, technology developed during the silence that allowed travel faster than light. "Drive spinning up," the engineer reported. "Field stability at 100%. Reed looked at the main screen showing the gas giant Jupiter against the blackness of space. For thousands of years, this had been the farthest humans ventured. Today, they would break that limit. "Fold space in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched and twisted around them as the Harbinger punched through the fabric of space. In the privacy of his quarters, Reed opened the message from Admiral Stone. "Jack, her recorded image said, 'What I'm about to tell you isn't in the mission briefing. The signal we received, it's a warning. Something is coming. Something our ancestors fought once before. If what you find confirms this, you have new orders. Prepare humanity for war.'" The ship hurtled through fold space toward coordinates not visited by humans in 5,000 years, carrying with it the possible end of humanity's long silence. As Reed stared at Admiral Stone's grim face on the screen, a chill ran down his spine. The great silence had never been about peace. It had been about hiding, and now something had found them. The Harbinger emerged from fold space with a flash of light. Captain Reed blinked as the main screen adjusted to show their new surroundings. A red dwarf star glowed dimly in the distance, its weak light barely reaching a cluster of planets orbiting it. "Location confirmed," said the navigation officer. "We've arrived at the coordinates." Dr. Gray rushed to the sensor station. "Amazing! Our first journey beyond Sol in 5,000 years. "Focus, Doctor," Reed reminded him. "What are we looking at?" Gray studied the readings. "Third planet seems most likely. It's in the habitable zone, though barely." Lieutenant Wilson moved to stand beside Reed. Her eyes were fixed on the planet, her expression unreadable. Reed had tried several times to learn more about her secret orders, but she had politely refused to share them. "Take us closer," Reed ordered. "Maintain stealth systems at maximum." As they approached the planet, the ship's AI system activated. A holographic woman appeared on the bridge. "Captain, I am detecting unusual energy signatures from the third planet," said Athena, the ship's AI. "They match no known pattern in our database." Reed leaned forward. "Is it the source of the signal?" "Negative. The signal originated from something in orbit around the planet." The sensors soon found it, a small station floating in a stable orbit, showing no lights or obvious signs of activity. "It appears to be dormant," said Athena, "but it is definitely of human design." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. "That's impossible," one of the officers whispered. "No human has been out here for 5 millennia. Dr. Marcus Bell, the xenohistorian who had been quietly analyzing data since their arrival, finally spoke up. "Not impossible, just forgotten." All eyes turned to him. "Before the Great Silence, humans had colonies across dozens of star systems," Bell explained. "Most were evacuated during the retreat, but historical records suggest some were lost or abandoned." Reed made his decision. "Prepare a shuttle. Dr. Bell, Dr. Gray, Lieutenant Wilson, you're with me." The shuttle approached the station cautiously. Up close, the structure was clearly ancient, its hull marked with scars from space debris and radiation. but something had kept it functioning all these years. Look at the design, Bell pointed out. Those curves, the material. This is from the pre-silence era, probably about 5,100 years old. They docked with the station, the magnetic clamps engaging with surprising ease. Reed led the team through the airlock, their suits protecting them from potential danger. Inside, emergency lights flickered on as they entered. The air was stale but breathable according to their sensors. Life support systems still functioning after all this time? Gray wondered aloud. Impossible. Someone's been maintaining it, Wilson said, her hand resting on her weapon. They moved deeper into the station, finding corridors and rooms that looked untouched for thousands of years. Yet essential systems still ran, preserved by some unknown force. In the central chamber, they found their answer. A soft blue light activated as they entered, forming into a humanoid shape, a hologram of an older man in an ancient uniform. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," the hologram said. "I am Guardian, caretaker of Outpost Horizon." Reed stepped forward. "How did you know we're from Earth?" "Your ship's design carries elements consistent with Earth technology, despite the evolutionary changes. And you arrived in response to the signal I sent." "You sent the message?" Gray asked, excitement in his voice. "About the Accord?" The hologram nodded. "I was programmed to monitor this sector and activate only if certain conditions were met. Those conditions have now been fulfilled." "What conditions?" Wilson demanded. "The return of the swarm." The name hung in the air, unfamiliar yet somehow chilling. "What is the swarm?" Reed asked. Guardian's form shifted, displaying a three-dimensional image of strange insect-like creatures with biomechanical features. "The swarm is a hive mind species that nearly destroyed all intelligent life in this sector of the galaxy 5,000 years ago." Bell stepped closer. "And humanity fought them." "Humanity didn't just fight them," Guardian corrected. "Humanity led the alliance against them. The Accord was formed under human leadership, uniting 17 species in the greatest military coalition this galaxy had ever seen." Reed shook his head. "That can't be right. Our history says we retreated from a devastating war, that we barely survived." "Your history was rewritten," Guardian said simply. "Humanity didn't retreat because it lost. Humanity retreated because it won, and the victory came at a terrible price." Guardian activated a viewing screen. Ancient footage played, showing massive space battles. Human ships, thousands of them, fighting alongside alien vessels against the swarming enemy. The tactics were brilliant, ruthless, and ultimately devastating. Humanity developed weapons specifically designed to target swarm weaknesses, Guardian explained as they watched. Biological, technological, and psychological warfare unlike anything seen before. The footage showed entire planets being systematically destroyed, swarm hive ships burning in space. "The final offensive broke the swarm completely," Guardian continued, "but the methods used horrified even human leaders. When the war ended, Earth's government made a decision. Humanity would withdraw from galactic affairs. But why maintain the silence for 5,000 years? Gray asked. "Two reasons," Guardian replied. "First, shame over what was done. Second, a strategic decision. The treaty that formed the Accord contained a contingency plan. If the swarm ever returned, humanity would be called back to lead the fight once more." Lieutenant Wilson finally spoke, her voice steady. "And now they're back." "Yes," Guardian confirmed. "My sensors detected swarm activity 3 months ago at the edge of what was once Accord space. I immediately sent the signal as programmed." Reed turned to Wilson. "You knew about this?" She nodded. "Not specifics, but Admiral Stone suspected what we might find. My orders are clear. If the threat is real, I'm to begin preparations for reactivating Earth's war machine." "What war machine?" Bell asked. "Earth has been peaceful for millennia." Guardian's hologram smiled sadly. "Dr. Bell, did you ever wonder why, despite 5,000 years of peace, Earth maintained such formidable defenses. Why your ships, though never used in war, are so well armed? The Great Silence wasn't just withdrawal, it was preparation. The hologram shifted again, showing a map of hidden facilities throughout the solar system and beyond. Weapon caches, shipyards, and military bases, all dormant but maintained in secret over the centuries. Humanity never forgot the threat, Guardian continued. Your leaders passed down the knowledge from generation to generation, maintaining readiness while hoping the day would never come. Reed felt cold realization washing over him. And now, that day is here. Guardian nodded gravely. The swarm has evolved, grown stronger. The remaining Accord species have been holding them back, but they need humanity's tactical genius once more. Wilson stepped forward. Where do we find the Accord now? I have coordinates, Guardian replied. They've maintained a hidden assembly, world, waiting for humanity's return. Representatives have gathered there preparing for war. Reed looked at his team, then back at Guardian. Show us everything you have on the swarm and the Accord. We need to know what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. As Guardian began displaying files and records from the ancient war, Reed sent a message back to the Harbinger. Prepare for long-range communication to Earth. Admiral Stone needs to know what we've found. The ghosts of humanity's past had returned, bringing with them a choice. Maintain the peace they had known for 5 millennia, or embrace the warriors they once were and honor a debt from another age. For 5,000 years, humanity was silent until someone calls us to war. Part 3, The Accord's Call. The Harbinger dropped out of fold space at the coordinates Guardian had provided. Captain Reed stood at the viewport, his face tight with concentration. After sending their report to Earth, Admiral Stone had ordered them to continue the mission, to find the Accord assembly world and gather more information. Scan for artificial structures, Reed ordered. Captain, called the sensor officer. I'm picking up multiple ships in the area. Different designs, nothing like ours. Reed nodded. Keep our stealth systems active, let's see what we're dealing with. Dr. Bell rushed to the main screen. Those ships, they match some of the designs from Guardian's records. Those are Accord vessels. On the main screen, they could see ships of various sizes and shapes moving around a small rocky planet. The ships were clearly military vessels, armed and armored, positioned defensively. We're being scanned, reported Athena, the ship's AI. Very advanced technology. Our stealth systems cannot hide us completely. Captain, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. It's in standard Earth language. Reed took a deep breath. Put it through. A voice came over the speakers, calm, measured, but clearly not human. Earth vessel, you are recognized. The Accord welcomes humanity's return. Please follow the transmitted approach vector to landing coordinates. The crew looked at Reed, waiting for his decision. How did they know we're from Earth? One officer whispered. Let's find out, Reed replied. Follow their approach vector. Keep weapon systems on standby, just in case. The Harbinger descended toward the planet's surface, escorted by 2 sleek alien ships. As they broke through the cloud layer, they saw a sprawling complex built into a mountain range, partially hidden, designed to be difficult to detect from space. It's a fortress, Lieutenant Wilson observed. They landed on a designated pad near the main structure. Reed selected his team, Dr. Bell, Dr. Gray, Lieutenant Wilson, and 2 security officers. Remember, Reed told them as they prepared to disembark, we are here to gather information. Be respectful but cautious. The landing ramp lowered, and for the first time in 5,000 years, humans stepped onto the soil of an alien world to meet other species face to face. 3 figures waited for them at the base of the ramp. The central figure stood slightly taller than a human, with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. To its left was a being that seemed almost plant-like, with bark-like skin and leafy growths. To its right was a smaller creature with large eyes and delicate features. The blue-skinned being stepped forward. I am Ambassador Kell of the Medusan Confederation. On behalf of the Accord, I welcome humanity's representatives. Reed introduced himself and his team. "We received your message. We've come to learn more about the situation. Please, follow me," Kel said, gesturing with one of his forearms. They walked through corridors carved into the mountain, passing members of various alien species. Some stopped to stare at the humans, with expressions that Reed interpreted as a mix of awe and relief. "They look at us like we're some kind of saviors," Dr. Gray whispered. "To them, perhaps we are," Bell replied quietly. Ambassador Kell led them into a large chamber where representatives from at least a dozen different species sat in a circular arrangement. As the humans entered, the aliens rose to their feet in what seemed like a sign of respect. "The humans have answered our call," Kell announced to the assembly. An older alien with crystalline features spoke up. "After 5,000 cycles, the warriors return. The prophecy holds true." Reed stepped forward. "We're not warriors. Earth has been peaceful for millennia." A ripple of what sounded like laughter moved through the assembly. Captain Reed said, "Kelson humanity may have forgotten its nature, but the rest of the galaxy has not. The stories of your species' military prowess have been passed down through generations. Some became myth, but the core truth remained." "What truth?" Reed asked. "That without humanity, the Accord cannot defeat the swarm," replied Kell. "Not again." Kell activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed star systems, at the edge of what he called known space. Dozens of worlds, some marked in red. "The red markers indicate worlds already consumed by the swarm," Kell explained. "They returned 3 years ago, emerging from the void beyond the galactic arm. They have evolved, adapted. Our defenses slow them but cannot stop them." "Why didn't you contact Earth sooner?" Lieutenant Wilson asked. A smaller alien, with features that reminded Reed of an insect, answered. "The treaty your ancestors signed was clear. Humanity would remain isolated unless the swarm returned at full strength. We have honored that treaty, protecting the borders of human space for 5,000 years. Reed looked surprised. "You've been protecting us?" "Of course," said Kell. "It was our part of the bargain. Humanity defeated the swarm and chose isolation. We promised to ensure that isolation remained unbroken." Reed turned to Bell. "Did you know about this protection?" Bell shook his head. "Our histories mention nothing about alien guardians." "There is much your people chose to forget," said Kell. "But now memory must return." A door at the far end of the chamber opened. A human figure walked in, an older man in a uniform design that Reed didn't recognize. "Who are you?" Reed demanded. "General Mark Taylor," the man replied. "Earth Military Command, Outer Defense Division." "That's impossible," said Dr. Gray. "Earth hasn't had an Outer Defense Division for thousands of years." General Taylor smiled grimly. "We've always had it, Doctor, just not where anyone could see it." Taylor explained that he had been awakened from stasis when the swarm's return was confirmed. He was one of several high-ranking officers preserved, from the original war, kept as a living connection to humanity's military past. "The Accord members recognized me," Taylor said. "I can verify they are indeed our former allies." Reed felt overwhelmed. "General, with all due respect, I need to understand what's happening. Why would Earth keep all this secret? Why maintain this fiction of peace if we've been preparing for war all along?" Taylor's face grew solemn. "Because, Captain, the weapons and tactics humanity developed to defeat the swarm nearly destroyed us too. The decision to retreat wasn't just about ending conflict, it was about preventing us from becoming monsters." The holographic display shifted to show images that made Reed's blood run cold. Planetary systems being systematically destroyed, biological weapons that targeted the swarm's neural networks, and psychological warfare beyond anything Reed had imagined possible. "We won the war," Taylor continued, "but the cost was our humanity. Our leaders feared what we might become if we continued down that path." A message alert sounded from Reed's communicator. It was from the Harbinger. A transmission from Earth had arrived, marked highest priority. Reed opened the message. Admiral Stone's face appeared, her expression grave. "Captain Reed, the Council has reviewed your findings. They authorize continued investigation but are not yet ready to commit to military action. However, she paused. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity near Neptune. Something is probing our defenses. The message ended. Reed looked up at General Taylor and Ambassador Kell. It seems, Reed said slowly, that the decision might be made for us. If the swarm is already testing Earth's defenses, we don't have the luxury of debate. Dr. Bell, who had been examining data on a nearby console, called out suddenly, "Captain, you need to see this." On the screen was a map showing hidden human outposts scattered throughout former human territory. Military bases, weapon caches, and automated defense systems, all dormant but intact. Your ancestors prepared for this possibility, Kell said. They hoped it would never come, but they prepared nonetheless. Reed stared at the map, the scale of the hidden human military presence becoming clear. For 5,000 years, behind the facade of peaceful isolation, humanity had maintained the capacity for war on a scale he could barely comprehend. The question now was whether they would use it. The Harbinger returned to Earth space 3 days later, accompanied by 2 Accord ships carrying Ambassador Kell and General Taylor. As they approached the outer defense perimeter, dozens of Earth vessels moved to intercept them. "Hold position," ordered a stern voice over the communication system. "Unidentified vessels, you are entering restricted space." Captain Reed opened a channel. "Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Jack Reed of the Harbinger. We're returning with diplomatic guests by direct authorization of Admiral Stone." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Harbinger, transmit authentication codes and prepare for escort." 6 sleek military ships surrounded them, their weapons systems clearly active. Reed noticed how the Earth vessels positioned themselves, a formation designed to destroy the alien ships instantly if needed. "Your people haven't forgotten how to fight," General Taylor observed with approval. Ambassador Kell seemed unfazed by the show of force. "We expected nothing less." Admiral Emma Stone waited in the lunar docking bay as the ships arrived. Behind her stood several members of the Earth Council, including Council Leader Diana Wright. Their faces were grim as they watched the alien visitors disembark. "Admiral Stone," Reed saluted as he approached. "Captain," she replied, then turned to the aliens. "Ambassador Kell, welcome to Luna Base. I apologize for the restrictive security measures." "No apologies needed, Admiral," Kell responded. "Caution is wise." Council Leader Wright stepped forward. "I am Diana Wright, representing Earth's unified government. Your presence here breaks 5,000 years of isolation. A necessary breach," said Kell, "given the circumstances." General Taylor was the last to exit the ship. When Admiral Stone saw him, her eyes widened in recognition. "General Taylor," she said, "I never thought I'd see you awakened in my lifetime." "Neither did I, Admiral," he replied. "The protocols were clear. Only a confirmed swarm resurgence would justify activation." Wright looked from Stone to Taylor. "You knew about him?" "Each head admiral is briefed on the contingency plans," Stone explained, "including the existence of the sleepers." "How many secrets has the military kept from the Council?" Wright demanded. Stone met her gaze steadily. "Only those necessary to fulfill our ancient mandate, protect Earth while maintaining the appearance of total peace." Deep beneath the lunar surface in a secured conference room, Reed watched as Admiral Stone presented the evidence they had gathered. The Earth Council members listened in stunned silence as she explained about the Accord, the returning swarm, and humanity's true history. "This changes everything we thought we knew," one counselor said. "No," Wright corrected. "This reveals what was deliberately hidden." She stood and activated a display of her own. "When I became council leader, I was given access to certain restricted historical archives. I know the real reason for our isolation." The display showed images similar to what Reed had seen in the Accord Assembly, the devastating weapons humans had used against the swarm. "Our ancestors didn't retreat out of fear," Wright continued. "They retreated out of shame. The methods we used to defeat the swarm were so horrible that our leaders feared what we might become if we continued to develop along that path." Ambassador Kell nodded solemnly. Your weapons targeted the swarm's shared consciousness. You found ways to turn their hive mind against itself. Effective, but the suffering it caused was immeasurable, Wright finished. And that's why I'm hesitant to bring humanity back into galactic affairs. If we awaken our war machine, can we control it? Or will we become the monsters we once feared? General Taylor stepped forward. Council leader, the swarm gives us no choice. They consume every world they touch, every being absorbed into their collective. There is no negotiating, no peaceful coexistence. Dr. Bell, who had been analyzing data since their return, cleared his throat. There's something else you should know. I've been studying the historical records we retrieved. The weapons humanity developed weren't just technological or biological. We created specific tactics designed to exploit swarm weaknesses. He displayed examples of battle plans from the old war, brilliant, ruthless strategies that had broken the swarm's forces. These weren't just weapons, Bell explained. It was our thinking that made us dangerous. Our ability to innovate, to adapt, to find an enemy's weakness, and exploit it without hesitation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Accord species have advanced their technology, Reed added. But according to Ambassador Kell, they lack the tactical innovation that made humans such effective warriors. Stone looked at Wright. The decision before us is clear. Do we honor our commitment to the Accord and fight? Or do we maintain our isolation and hope the swarm doesn't find us? Before Wright could answer, an alarm blared through the facility. A communications officer burst into the room. Admiral Stone, the Neptune outpost is under attack. The command center of Luna Base hummed with frantic activity as reports came in. The holographic display showed Neptune's largest moon base under assault from strange, organic-looking ships. How did they get past our early warning systems? Stone demanded. Unknown, Admiral, an officer replied. They seemed to appear out of nowhere. Reed watched as the Neptune defense forces engaged the attackers. The Earth ships fought well, but the swarm vessels moved with a coordinated precision that was unnerving. They've been studying us, General Taylor said quietly. They remembered their old enemy. The outpost reports 70% of defensive capabilities offline, reported an officer. They're requesting immediate reinforcement. Stone looked at Wright, waiting for authorization. Wright's face was pale but resolute. Deploy the 6th Fleet. The 6th Fleet? Reed asked. I wasn't aware we had numbered fleets. There's much you weren't aware of, Captain, Stone replied. She turned to a communications officer. Send the activation codes. Authorization, Stone, Emma, Admiral, clearance Alpha 1. Throughout Earth's solar system, hidden installations began to power up. On Mars, massive hangar doors opened in what had appeared to be natural canyons. In the asteroid belt, what looked like mining operations transformed into military shipyards. Near Jupiter, orbital platforms that had been disguised as research stations revealed weapon systems more advanced than anything Reed had seen. All this time, Reed whispered, all this time we were preparing. Hope for peace, prepare for war, Taylor said. The oldest military doctrine. Stone turned to Wright. Council leader, with the swarm directly attacking our forces, I recommend implementing Protocol Lazarus. Wright closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. Proceed. Stone entered a series of commands into a secure terminal. Deep beneath the lunar surface, a massive military complex began to awaken. Lights activated in vast chambers filled with ships, weapons, and supplies. In specialized medical units, thousands of stasis pods powered up, beginning the revival process for soldiers and specialists prepared for this very day. What is Protocol Lazarus? Reed asked. The awakening of our full military capability, Taylor explained. Ships, weapons, and specially trained personnel kept in stasis, waiting for the day they might be needed. How many? Reed asked. Enough to make a difference, Stone replied. From his position near a viewing port, Reed watched as Earth's orbital defense grid came online. Thousands of satellites and platforms that had appeared passive for centuries, now revealing their true purpose. The peaceful facade that humanity had maintained for 5,000 years was falling away, revealing the sleeping giant beneath. As Reed observed the transformation, he wondered if humanity could wield such power without losing itself in the process. Would they save the galaxy, or become what they once feared? The answer would come soon enough. 3 weeks after the attack on Neptune, Admiral Emma Stone stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought, Earth's largest warship. Hidden in the rings of Saturn for millennia, the massive vessel had been maintained in perfect condition, waiting for the day it would be needed. Stone, now bearing the title of Fleet Commander, watched as hundreds of Earth ships gathered around her. Some were newly built, others awakened from hidden caches throughout the solar system. Together with the Accord fleet, they formed the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 5,000 years. Captain Reed entered the bridge, now wearing the insignia of a tactical commander. "Fleet is assembled and ready, Commander," he reported. Stone nodded. "And the special weapons?" "Dr. West has integrated the ancient anti-swarm technology with our modern systems. The tests show they're even more effective than the original designs." Dr. Olivia West had been one of the specialists, awakened from stasis, an expert in the biological and technological weapons specifically designed to target swarm weaknesses. She had spent the past weeks working with modern engineers to update and improve the old designs. "Any change in the swarm's movements?" Stone asked. "They've pulled back from Neptune and appear to be regrouping at the edge of our system," Reed replied. "Ambassador Kell believes they're surprised by our response. They didn't expect us to be so prepared." Stone allowed herself a small smile. 5,000 years of preparation has its advantages. Council leader Diana Wright, who had taken the title of High General to signify Earth's shift to war footing, joined them on the bridge. Since the attack, Wright had shown a different side of herself, revealing military training and knowledge that surprised even Stone. "The combined fleet is ready," Wright announced. "The Accord captains have accepted human tactical command. They remember how we fight," Stone observed Wright carefully. "You were part of this all along, weren't you? The peaceful politician was just a cover." Wright nodded. "Each council leader is selected not just for their political skills, but for their ability to lead in war if necessary. We hoped the day would never come." Ambassador Kell entered the bridge, accompanied by representatives from several other Accord species. They had adapted quickly to working with humans again, as if the 5,000-year gap had never existed. "The swarm forces have been detected moving toward the Proxima system," Kell reported. "They appear to be establishing a new hive cluster there." "Then that's where we strike," Stone decided. "Not here in our territory, but at their new foundation." The combined fleet emerged from fold space at the edge of the Proxima system. Immediately, sensors detected swarm activity, dozens of their biomechanical ships orbiting the system's second planet. "They've begun transforming the planet," reported a sensor officer. "The surface is being converted into a hive structure." Reed studied the tactical display. They've positioned their ships in a defensive formation around the main hive ship. Classic swarm strategy. Protect the queen node at all costs. Stone turned to Dr. West. "Are the targeted weapons ready?" "Yes, Commander," West replied. "But I've made modifications to the original design." She displayed her changes on a nearby screen. The old weapons were designed for total destruction of the swarm's neural network. Effective but essentially genocide. I've recalibrated them to target only the command structures while leaving the drone units intact but disconnected. "Why? Would we want to leave any of them intact?" Wright asked sharply. Dr. Bell, who had been studying swarm communication patterns, stepped forward. "Because we've discovered something important. The swarm has evolved over the past 5,000 years. They're not just a mindless hive anymore." He displayed his findings, subtle variations in swarm communication that suggested individual thought patterns emerging within the collective. "They're developing individual consciousness," Bell explained. "The drones are becoming something more than tools of the central mind." Reed looked troubled. "If they're evolving into individuals, then using the old weapons would be mass murder," West finished. Not tactical elimination of a threat. Stone considered this information. Can your modified weapons disable their offensive capabilities without destroying them completely? Yes, West confirmed. It would disrupt the Queen's control while leaving the individual units intact. Stone made her decision. We'll use the modified approach. This isn't about revenge, it's about ending the threat. The battle plan was transmitted throughout the fleet. The human ships would lead the main assault, targeting the swarm's command ships with the specialized weapons. The Accord vessels would focus on containing any swarm ships that attempted to escape. As the fleet moved into position, Reed found himself thinking about the burden of humanity's history. For 5,000 years, they had hidden their true nature, not just from the galaxy but from themselves. The peaceful civilization they had built was real, but so was this warrior spirit that now reawakened. "The swarm has detected us," announced a tactical officer. "They're moving to engage." "All ships," Stone ordered, "execute battle plan Horizon." The human fleet split into 3 coordinated groups, executing maneuvers that confused the swarm's predictive systems. The Accord ships followed in perfect formation, trusting the human tactics that had proven effective millennia ago. Reed watched as the first wave of specialized weapons struck the swarm's command ships. Rather than destroying them outright, the weapons created cascading disruptions in their neural networks. Swarm vessels began to drift, their coordinated movements failing. "It's working," West reported. "The Queen node is losing control of the collective." On the main display, they could see the massive hive ship at the center of the swarm formation. It was trying to re-establish control over its forces, but the disruption was spreading too quickly. "Now," Stone ordered, "targeted strike on the Queen node's command center." A small team of specialized ships broke through the swarm's defenses, delivering a precisely calculated strike. The hive ship's lights flickered and then went dark. Across the battlefield, swarm vessels stopped fighting. Some drifted aimlessly, while others seemed to move with new, uncertain patterns, like creatures suddenly awakened to individual existence. "We did it," Wright said quietly. "Without destroying them all." "A different solution than last time," Reed noted. "A better one," Stone replied. "We remember our history, but we don't have to repeat it." 1 month later, Captain Reed stood in the rebuilt Earth Council chamber. Representatives from all 17 Accord species filled the room, gathered to formalize a new alliance with humanity. Ambassador Kell stood beside Reed as they watched Admiral Stone and High General Wright sign the new treaty. "Your people surprised us," Kell admitted. "We expected the same warriors who fought 5,000 years ago. Instead, we found something better." "What's that?" Reed asked. "Warriors who remember the cost of war," Kell replied. "Who look for better solutions." As the signing concluded, Wright addressed the gathering. 5,000 years ago, humanity retreated from the stars, ashamed of what we had become in war. Today we return, not just as warriors, but as builders and peacekeepers. She gestured to the swarm representative standing awkwardly at the edge of the chamber, former drones now developing individual identities after being freed from the Queen's control. "Our debt to the Accord has been repaid," Wright continued. "But our journey is just beginning. Humanity will no longer hide in silence. We will use our strength to protect, our wisdom to guide, and our compassion to heal." Reed looked out at the assembled representatives of a dozen worlds. For 5,000 years, humanity had been silent, turning inward to build a peaceful society, while never forgetting how to fight. Now they would bring both those aspects of themselves to the stars, the warriors and the builders, together. The silence was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The sky was not blue anymore. It had not been blue for many years. Instead, it hung over the land like a dirty blanket, gray and heavy with poison. Below this sad sky, the last humans of Earth lived in large glass domes. These were the final, safe places where trees could grow and water could fall clean from pipes. Commander James Walker stood at the edge of Dome 7, looking out through the thick glass. Outside, the land was brown and dead. Storms of dust moved across what used to be farmland. He placed his hand on the glass, feeling the barrier between life and death. "Commander," "The council is waiting," said a voice behind him. James turned to face his second-in-command, Tom. The younger man looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. "Everyone looked tired these days." "Tell them I'm coming," James said, taking one last look at the dead world. "Has there been any change in the signal?" Tom shook his head. "No, sir. The objects are still approaching Earth. They will arrive in 3 days." James nodded and followed Tom through the dome's intersections. Around them, people moved with purpose, carrying food or tools. Children played in small gardens where every plant was precious. This was humanity now, just under 5 million people spread across 12 domes worldwide. The Global Defense Force headquarters sat at the center of Dome 7. It was a plain building of metal and concrete, built for use, not beauty. Inside, the World Council had gathered in the main meeting room. "Commander Walker, thank you for joining us," said President Laura, the head of the council. She was an older woman with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much suffering. "We need to decide how to respond to these visitors." James took his seat at the table. On the large screen at the front of the room, images from space telescopes showed the approaching ships. There were 7 of them, massive and strange in design. "They say they come in peace," said Dr. Allen, the head scientist. He played the message that had been repeating for days. A strange voice spoke in perfect English. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We have observed your struggle. We wish to help. Please respond." "It could be a trick," said General Reed, an old military man with a face like stone. "We should prepare our weapons." "What weapons?" asked Dr. Allen with a bitter laugh. "Our defense systems can barely stop a meteor, let alone an advanced alien fleet." James listened to them argue. His mind went back 20 years, to the water, wars when the last of the clean rivers were fought over. He had lost his wife and daughter in those wars. Since then, trust had become a luxury he could not afford. "Commander Walker, what do you think?" President Laura asked, bringing James back to the present. James looked at the images of the ships again. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it from far away. They have technology far beyond ours, but I don't trust anyone who comes with big promises. "We don't have much choice," said a council member named Maria. "Look at our situation. Earth is dying. The outside air is toxic. Our food production barely keeps everyone alive. If there's even a small chance they can help, we must take it." James knew she was right. The domes were failing. The air filters needed materials they could no longer mine. In 50 years, maybe, less humans would be gone from Earth. "I suggest we respond with caution," James said finally. "We tell them they can approach, but only one ship. The rest must stay in high orbit. And we meet them in the neutral zone outside Dome 7, not inside our home." The council voted. Most agreed with James's plan, though General Reed and his supporters voted against any contact. After the meeting, James went to the communications center. There, specialists prepared the message to the aliens who called themselves the Visitors. "This is humanity speaking," the message began. "We accept your peaceful approach. One ship may land at these coordinates, the rest must remain in orbit. We will meet with your representatives and hear what you offer." As the message was sent into space, James walked through the dome to his small apartment. On the wall hung a photo of his wife and daughter smiling in front of trees and a blue sky. A world now gone. That night, James could not sleep. He stood by his window looking at the stars. Somewhere up there, the visitors were coming closer. Were they truly coming to help? Or was this humanity's final mistake? The next morning, the visitors responded. They agreed to all terms. One ship would land while the others remained in orbit. "They seem eager to prove their good intentions," Tom said as they reviewed the message. "Yes," James replied. "That's what worries me." For the next 2 days, Dome 7 was busy with preparations. A meeting place was built in the neutral zone, a simple structure with air filters so humans could breathe outside the dome. Security teams planned for every possible danger. Scientists prepared questions about the visitors' technology and biology. On the third day, James stood with President Laura and the reception team in the neutral zone building. They wore protective suits, though sensors showed the air inside was clean. "They're entering the atmosphere," said a voice in James's earpiece. Through the building's clear ceiling, they watched as a bright light appeared in the gray sky. It grew, larger until they could see the ship, massive and silver, moving without sound despite its size. It landed a safe distance away, stirring up clouds of dust. "This is it," President Laura whispered. "The first contact between humanity and alien life." James put his hand on his weapon. "Let's hope they truly come in peace." A door opened in the side of the ship. Light spilled out, making it hard to see inside. Then shapes appeared. Walking. Figures coming down a ramp. They looked almost human, but not quite. Taller, with skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. There were 5 of them, walking calmly toward the meeting place. The leader stepped forward as they reached the building. He was dressed in simple clothes that looked like a uniform. When he spoke, his mouth moved strangely with the words. "I am Torin, ambassador of the visitors," he said in that same perfect English from the message. "We come to offer help to the people of Earth in their time of need." President Laura stepped forward. "I am President Laura Chen, representing the World Council of Earth. We welcome you and wish to understand your intentions." Torin smiled, an expression that looked practiced. "Our intentions are simple. We have the technology to heal your world, to make your air clean again, to bring life back to your soil and seas." James watched carefully, looking for signs of deception. But all he saw was a being offering the one thing humanity needed most: hope. "And what do you want in return?" James asked, unable to stop himself. Torin turned to him. "You must be the cautious one. That is wise. We ask only for permission to establish a small community of our own people in a region you no longer use. The southern polar area. We find its conditions suitable for our biology." President Laura and James exchanged looks. It seemed too good to be true. "We will need to discuss this with our full council," President Laura said. "Of course," Torin replied. "We have traveled far and can wait a little longer, but not too long. Your world grows more poisoned each day." As they continued talking, James studied the visitors. They were clearly advanced far beyond human technology. If they wanted to destroy humanity, they could have done so easily. Yet something still bothered him, a feeling he couldn't shake. When the meeting ended, the visitors returned to their ship. They left behind devices that they claimed would analyze Earth's atmosphere and soil. Back in the dome, the council gathered again. The debate lasted hours. Most wanted to accept the visitors' help immediately. Others, like General Reed, wanted to refuse any contact. "We know nothing about them," the general argued. "Their technology could just as easily destroy us as save us." In the end, President Laura called for a vote. The result was clear. Earth would accept the visitors' offer of help. As James left the council room, he made a private decision. He would work with these visitors. He would welcome their help. But he would also watch them closely. Because Earth could not afford another mistake, not when these were humanity's final breaths. 1 week after the first meeting, the visitors had set up what they called a demonstration site outside Dome 7. James stood at the edge of a newly built platform, watching as Torin and 3 other visitors worked with strange machines. The devices hummed with energy, sending pulses into the dead soil. "This small area will show you what we can do for your entire planet," Torin explained. His English had become more natural sounding over the past days. "The process takes time, but you will see results soon." Next to James stood Mark Wilson, the military advisor who had replaced General Reed after the old man suffered a heart attack. Mark was younger than James, but just as suspicious. "I don't like it," Mark whispered. "They won't explain how their technology works." "They say we wouldn't understand it," James replied. "They might be right." Beyond the platform, a team of Earth scientists in protective suits took readings. Among them was Dr. Anna Miller, the head biologist. She had been working closely with the visitors, learning what she could. The air quality is already improving in this test area, she called out, checking her instruments. Toxin levels are down by 12%. Torrin smiled. By tomorrow it will be 30%. In 1 week, you will be able to breathe here. Without protection, James watched as one of the visitors placed small seed-like objects into the soil. They glowed briefly before sinking into the ground. What are those? James asked. Special organisms, Torrin said. They consume the poisons in your soil and convert them to nutrients. They will spread slowly, cleaning as they go. That evening, James met with President Laura and the council in a private meeting room. Anna was there too, presenting her findings. Their technology is incredible, she said, showing images on the screen. The organisms they've planted are like nothing on Earth. They're already breaking down chemicals we thought would take centuries to remove. Can we trust this process? President Laura asked. Could these organisms harm us? Anna shook her head. We've run every test we can. They only target specific toxins. They ignore healthy cells completely. Mark spoke up. But what about their request for Antarctica? Why there specifically? They say the cold conditions match their home world, Anna replied, and it's one of the few areas where humans never built major settlements. James listened carefully. Everything the visitors said made sense. Their actions matched their words. Yet something still felt wrong. I want to see inside their ship, he said suddenly. President Laura looked surprised. Commander Walker, that might seem hostile. Not if we invite them to see inside our dome as well, James replied, a gesture of trust on both sides. The next day, James made the proposal to Torrin. The visitor seemed to consider it carefully. We understand your caution, Torrin said finally. Perhaps not the entire ship, but I can show you our control center and living quarters. 2 days later, James and a small team entered the visitor ship. The interior was strange, curved walls that seemed to glow from within, and air that smelled like nothing on Earth. It was neither pleasant nor unpleasant, just alien. Torrin led them through hallways where other visitors nodded respectfully. James noticed they moved with a strange grace, as if gravity affected them differently. This is our main control area, Torrin said, entering a large room filled with what looked like liquid displays. From here, we monitor the healing process across your planet. One of the screens showed a map of Earth with colored areas spreading slowly from points around the world. Another visitor stood nearby, manipulating symbols in the air. This is Ren, my security chief, Torrin said. Ren was taller than Torrin, with features that seemed sharper. When he looked at James, his eyes were intense. You are the protector of your people, Ren said. His voice was deeper than Torrin's. As I am the protector of mine. James nodded. It seems we have similar jobs. Different worlds, same concerns, Ren replied. There was something in his tone that James understood, the weight of responsibility. The tour continued through living quarters where visitors rested on strange pod-like beds. They saw eating areas where food that looked like colored crystals was consumed. Everything was efficient, clean, and completely foreign. Later that day, James returned the favor, showing Torrin and Ren through Dome 7. The visitors watched, with interest as humans went about their daily lives, growing food in indoor farms, teaching children in small schools, working to maintain the dome's systems. Your people adapt well to difficult conditions, Torrin observed. We have no choice, James replied. It's adapt or die. At a small park area where trees grew under artificial light, a girl about 6 years old approached them. Before her guardian could pull her back, she held up a drawing to Torrin. Is this me? Torrin asked, taking the paper. It showed a tall stick figure with a smile, standing next to smaller figures labeled Us. The girl nodded. Are you really fixing our world so we can go outside? Something crossed Torrin's face then, an expression James couldn't read. Yes, little one. That is our hope. That night, James couldn't sleep. He stood by his window looking at the visitor ship glowing softly in the distance. Their tour had revealed nothing suspicious. The visitors seemed genuinely committed to helping Earth. A knock at his door broke his thoughts. It was Mark. "Sorry to disturb you so late, Commander," Mark said, "but I found something strange in the data." He showed James a tablet with energy readings. These spikes happen every night at exactly the same time. The visitors say it's part of their ship's normal operation, but it doesn't match any pattern we've seen. James studied the readings. "What do you think it means?" "I don't know," Mark admitted. "But they're sending signals to their other ships in orbit, and those ships are sending signals toward deep space. They said they have a homeworld," James replied. "They would naturally communicate with it." "Yes, but why hide the pattern? Why not just tell us about regular communications?" James had no answer for that. The next morning, green shoots had appeared in the demonstration area. Anna was practically dancing with excitement as she showed James. "These plants are absorbing carbon dioxide at 10 times the rate of Earth plants," she explained. "And look at this." She held up a device. "The soil toxicity is down by 40% already." Around them, other scientists were taking samples and running tests. The air did seem clearer here, the color of the soil richer. "By next week, we'll be able to expand the treatment to areas around all 12 domes," Anna continued. "In 6 months, we could have breathable air in major regions. In a year," her voice broke, "in a year, we could have forests again." James watched as Torrin approached them. The visitor looked pleased. "Your scientists learn quickly," he said. "Soon they will be able to continue much of this work themselves." "Will your people stay to see Earth fully healed?" James asked. Torrin looked at the tiny green shoots pushing through soil that had been dead for decades. "Some will stay. Others will return home. But we will not abandon you before you can manage on your own." Later that day, a message came from the visitors' ships in orbit. They had begun the process of terraforming the Antarctic region for their colony. Machines were being sent down to prepare living spaces under the ice. The World Council met again to discuss these developments. Most members were overwhelmingly positive. "This is more than we could have hoped for," President Laura said. "A chance to save our world and make peaceful contact with another civilization." Only Mark seemed concerned. "They're moving very quickly with their Antarctic base, and they're bringing down more equipment than seems necessary for a small colony." "Would you prefer they move slowly in saving our planet?" asked another council member. James listened to the debate, his mind turning over every interaction with the visitors. He had come to respect Torrin, even like him. He had seen nothing to suggest the aliens meant harm. Yet Mark's concerns echoed his own unease. The visitors were helping humanity, yes, but they were also establishing themselves on Earth with remarkable speed. And there were still many questions they avoided answering directly. As the meeting ended, James made a decision. He would continue working with the visitors openly, but he would also begin his own investigation into what they might not be telling humanity. Because even as Earth began to heal, James couldn't shake the feeling that the visitors had brought more than just help to his dying world. They had brought secrets. 3 months had passed since the visitors began their work. Outside Dome 7, the landscape had changed completely. Where once there was only dead brown soil, now green plants grew in thick patches. Small trees, specially designed to grow quickly, reached toward the sky. The air, while not perfect, was clean enough that people could go outside with only simple masks instead of full protection suits. James walked through what they now called the New Forest, breathing deeply. Next to him walked Wren, the visitor, security chief. Over the weeks, the two had developed an unusual friendship. "Your world heals faster than we expected," Wren said, watching a small bird land on a branch. Birds had been kept in special sanctuaries within the domes for generations. Now they were being slowly released into the growing forests. "Nature wants to live," James replied. "It just needed help." They continued walking until they reached a small stream. The water flowed clear over rocks that had been buried under toxic dust for decades. Fish swam in the deeper pools, another species being carefully reintroduced. "In my world," Wren said suddenly, "we also faced destruction, but we had no one to help us." James looked at him with surprise. This was the first time any visitor had spoken about their homeworld in detail. "What happened?" James asked. Wren's expression changed in that strange way the visitors had. "We used our resources until they were gone. The air turned bad. The water became poison." He looked at the small stream. "Just like your Earth." "How did you survive?" "We changed. We made new technology. We found ways to live differently." Rendabies looked up at the sky. "And we began to travel to find new places." James absorbed this information. It explained the visitors' advanced environmental technology. They had developed it to save themselves. "Is that why you help us? Because you faced the same problems?" Ren seemed to choose his words carefully. "We help because we can, and because there is value in saving a world rather than finding a new one." Later that day, James joined President Laura and other officials for a tour of the expanded restoration zones. Anna led the group, proudly showing the progress. "We've restored nearly 10,000 square miles around the domes," she explained. "At this rate, we'll have livable conditions across most of North America by next year." The group moved to a testing station where scientists worked alongside visitors. "The most amazing part is how they've taught us to continue the process ourselves," Anna said. "We're learning to make our own restoration seeds now." "And the Antarctic colony?" President Laura asked. "How is that progressing?" One of the visitor scientists answered, "It goes well. Our living spaces are nearly complete beneath the ice. Soon we will bring more of our people down from the ships." James noticed how the visitor avoided details. It was always the same when the Antarctic base was mentioned, general answers without specifics. That evening, James met with Mark in a secure room in the Defense Force headquarters. Mark had been making regular trips to monitor the Antarctic situation. "They've built something massive down there," Mark said, showing James images taken from surveillance drones. "Much bigger than a colony for a few thousand individuals." The images showed huge structures beneath the ice, visible only through thermal imaging. Some sections appeared to be power generators of enormous size. "What do you think it is?" James asked. "I don't know," Mark admitted. "But they're drawing materials from their ships in orbit faster than seems necessary, and they've placed devices at regular intervals around the entire continent." James studied the images. "Have you shown these to President Laura?" "Not yet. I wanted your opinion first." James thought about Wren's words earlier that day, about how the visitors had faced destruction on their own world. "Continue monitoring," he decided, "but don't raise alarms yet. They've kept every promise about healing our planet. We need to be certain before we accuse them of anything." The next morning, James received an unexpected invitation. Torrin asked him to join a small team traveling to Dome 3 in what used to be Europe. They would fly in one of the visitor ships to inspect the restoration progress there. The ship moved with incredible speed and silence. Through the windows, James watched the Earth pass below. Large green patches were visible now, spreading outward, from each dome like healing wounds. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Torrin said, joining him at the window. "Life returning." "It's more than we dared hope for," James admitted. Torrin was quiet for a moment. "Commander, there is something I wish to discuss with you. Something important." James felt his body tense. Was this finally the truth behind the visitor's arrival? "I have noticed your advisor, Mark, has been watching our Antarctic development closely," Torrin continued. "I understand your caution, but I want to assure you, what we build there is not a weapon or threat." "Then what is it?" James asked directly. Torrin seemed to struggle with his answer. "A safeguard for both our peoples." Before James could ask more questions, the ship began its descent toward Dome 3. The conversation was cut short as they prepared to land. Dome 3 had once been built near the city of Paris. Now the dome gleamed in the sunlight, surrounded by growing forests and fields. As in North America, the restoration here was progressing rapidly. The local leaders welcomed them warmly. People smiled and pointed at the visitors with hope and gratitude. Children presented gifts of artwork showing green earth and the silver, ships that had brought salvation. One old man approached James with tears in his eyes. "I never thought I would see trees again," he said, his voice breaking. "I never thought my grandchildren would know a world outside the dome." James felt his doubts waver. Whatever the visitors' true purpose, they were giving humanity back its world. How could that be wrong? During the return flight, James found himself talking with Wren again. The security chief seemed more open than usual. "Your people adapt quickly," Wren observed. "They learn our methods and improve them." "Humans are good at learning," James replied. "It's how we survived this long." Wren was quiet for a moment. "May I ask you something, Commander? Do you trust us now?" The question caught James off guard. "I want to, but you still have doubts." It wasn't a question. James looked at Wren directly. "Would you trust strangers who came to your world with amazing promises?" Wren made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No, I would not." He leaned closer. "Caution is wise, Commander. But sometimes help comes without hidden dangers." When they returned to Dome 7, James found Mark waiting with urgent news. "The energy readings from Antarctica have spiked dramatically," Mark said once they were alone. "And we've detected new signals being sent from their ships, not to their home world, but toward the edge of our solar system." James felt his earlier doubts return. "Do we know what the signals mean?" "No, but they began right after our long-range sensors detected something unusual at the edge of the Kuiper Belt." "What kind of something?" Mark showed him the readings. "Energy distortions like ripples in space, the kind that might come from very large ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel." James thought of Wren's words about their home world, about how they had faced destruction and learned to travel to new places. "I think it's time we had a very direct conversation with our visitors," James said. "No more vague answers about safeguards. We need to know exactly what they're building in Antarctica, and exactly what those signals mean." Mark nodded in agreement. "And if they won't tell us?" James looked out the window at the healing earth, at the new trees bending in the wind, at birds flying in a cleaner sky. "Then we need to prepare for the possibility that helping us wasn't their only reason for coming here." As night fell, the visitor ships in orbit glowed like new stars in the sky. 6 months ago, their arrival had seemed like humanity's last hope. Now James wondered if they had brought something else with them, a danger they hadn't shared. Tomorrow, he would demand answers. For tonight, he watched the stars and wondered what else might be coming toward Earth from the darkness beyond. James stood in President Laura's office, watching her face as she studied the images Mark had collected. The room was silent except for the soft hum of air filters. "You're certain about these readings?" she asked finally, looking up at Mark. "Yes, Madam President. The energy signatures at the edge of the solar system are growing stronger, and the Antarctic base." Mark pointed to thermal images showing massive power sources beneath the ice. "It's far beyond what they described to us." President Laura turned to James. "What do you recommend?" "We confront them directly," James said. "No diplomatic games. We need the truth." She nodded slowly. "Arrange a meeting with Torin, immediately." 2 hours later, they sat in the main conference room. Torin had arrived promptly when summoned, bringing Wren with him. The two visitors sat calmly across from the humans. "We value the partnership we've built," President Laura began, "but we've discovered concerning developments that you haven't shared with us." She nodded to Mark, who displayed the images of the Antarctic base and the energy readings from deep space. "Your Antarctic facility is much larger than a simple colony," James said, "and something is approaching our solar system, something you're communicating with." Torin and Wren exchanged looks. For the first time since their arrival, the visitors seemed unsure. "We had hoped to wait longer before this discussion," Torin said finally, "until your world was stronger, until trust was deeper." "No more delays," James insisted. "Tell us the truth. All of it." Torin stood and walked to the window. Outside, children played in the new park area where real grass now grew. "We came to help you," he said. "That was not a lie. But we also came because we needed a new home, a refuge. A refuge from what? President Laura asked. Torin turned. From those who destroyed our original world. The room fell silent. Ren spoke up, his voice deeper than usual. Thousands of years ago, our civilization spread across many worlds. We were peaceful, focused on knowledge and growth. Then we encountered the harvesters. Torin activated a device on his wrist. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. A massive ship, black and angular, nothing like the smooth curves of visitor vessels. The harvesters move from system to system, Torin explained. They take what they need, resources, technology, even living beings for study. They leave nothing but empty worlds behind. They destroyed your homeworld? James asked. Not directly, Ren answered. We fought them and drove them back, but the war left our planet devastated. We became nomads, searching for new homes. Torin continued. We discovered Earth 50 years ago. We saw what was happening, how you were destroying your own world through carelessness. We decided to wait, to see if you would correct your path. But you didn't, Ren added. And then we detected harvester scout ships at the edge of your system. They found Earth just as we did. President Laura stood up. Are you saying Earth is in danger from these harvesters? Extreme danger, Torin confirmed. They will arrive in approximately 6 months. James felt cold realization spread through him. The Antarctic base, it's not a colony, it's a defense system. Ren nodded. A planetary shield generator, the most powerful we've ever built. It can protect the entire Earth from their weapons. Why didn't you tell us from the beginning? James demanded. Because of fear, Torin said simply. Not our fear, yours. If we had arrived and said, your world is dying and alien destroyers are coming, would you have believed us? Or would you have seen it as a trick to take your world? Mark spoke up. So you cleaned our atmosphere and restored our ecosystems just to fight these harvesters? No, Ren said firmly. We restored your world because it was the right thing to do, but we also needed a healthy Earth to support the energy requirements of the shield. And he hesitated. We hoped to make this our new home, alongside humanity. After the harvesters are defeated. The humans exchanged looks. The room was silent as they processed this information. Finally, President Laura asked, how dangerous are these harvesters? Can your shield stop them? Torin's face grew grave. They have destroyed hundreds of worlds. The shield will stop their initial attacks, but not forever. To truly defeat them, we will need to fight, your people and ours together. James looked at Ren. That's why you've been teaching us your technology. Not just for restoration, but to prepare us. Ren nodded. Your people learn quickly. Your scientists have already improved some of our designs. Together, we have a chance. President Laura called an emergency meeting of the World Council. For hours, they debated the visitors' revelations. Some believed it was all a lie to take control of Earth. Others accepted the warning and wanted to prepare. They've done everything they promised, one council member argued. Our world is healing because of them. But they kept this harvester threat secret, another countered. What else aren't they telling us? James listened to the arguments, his mind turning over every interaction with the visitors since their arrival. He thought of Ren's words about their lost home, of the sincere way Torin had spoken with the little girl who asked if they were really fixing Earth. As the debate continued, James slipped out of the meeting. He found Ren standing alone on an observation platform looking at the stars. If these harvesters come, James said, how bad will it be? Ren didn't look away from the sky. Worse than you can imagine. They will strip your world bare. Take samples of your species. Leave the rest to die slowly. You could have left, James said, warned us and moved on. Why stay and help? Ren turned to him then. Because we are tired of running. Tired of watching worlds die. And because... He seemed to search for words. Because your world reminds us of what ours once was. Beautiful, full of life. James stood beside him, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, destruction was approaching. I believe you, James said finally. But many won't. They'll see this as a trick to control Earth. We don't need to control Earth, Ren replied. We need Earth to survive, just as you do. The next morning, the World Council announced its decision. They would continue working with the visitors, but with increased oversight of the Antarctic facility. Military representatives from all dome regions would inspect the shield technology. As James prepared to lead the first inspection team, Mark brought him troubling news. Our long-range scanners just picked up something, Mark said, showing James the readings. A small object crossed the orbit of Neptune, moving fast, too small to be a ship. A probe? James suggested. That's my guess. The harvesters are scouting. Ahead. James thought about what this meant. How long until it reaches Earth? At current speed, about 3 weeks. James looked out at the newly restored landscape around Dome 7. Trees swayed in the clean wind. Birds flew overhead. After decades of death, life was returning to Earth. And now a new threat was coming, one that could end everything. We need to see that shield, James said. And we need to know exactly how it works. Because if the visitors are telling the truth, we have less than 6 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. Mark nodded grimly. And if they're lying? James thought of Ren's face when he spoke of his lost world, of the sincerity he had sensed. Then we'll deal with that too. But first, we need to know what's really waiting for us under the Antarctic. Ice. As dawn broke over the healing Earth, James prepared for the journey to the southern continent. Whatever the truth, he knew one thing with certainty. The peaceful first contact with the visitors had been only the beginning. What came next would determine the fate of both their peoples. The Harvester scout ship arrived sooner than anyone expected. It appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, a small black vessel that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Before Earth's defense systems could respond, it had scanned the planet and sent a burst transmission toward deep space. James watched from the Antarctic Command Center as visitor ships destroyed the scout, but it was too late. The message had been sent. They know we're here, Torrin said grimly. They know about our presence in the shield. The Antarctic base was unlike anything James had imagined. Beneath 2 miles of ice lay a vast complex of visitor technology. At its center stood the shield generator, a tower of pulsing blue energy that reached up through a shaft in the ice. For the past 2 weeks, James and military leaders from all 12 domes had inspected the facility. They had verified that it was indeed a defensive system, not a weapon aimed at Earth, but a shield to protect it. How long until the main harvester force arrives? James asked. Ren studied the readings from deep space sensors. Based on the Scout's transmission path, less than 3 months, much sooner than we expected. James turned to the human and visitor technicians working side by side. Then we need to speed up our preparations. Over the next weeks, the truth about the harvesters was shared with all of humanity. Some people panicked, others refused to believe, but most understood the danger and joined the preparation efforts. Defense stations were built around each dome. Visitor technology was combined with human designs to create new weapons. Ships that had once been used for environmental restoration were converted for battle. In what had once been called the United Nations building in Dome 1, James addressed the newly formed Earth Defense Council. The shield will protect our planet from their main weapons, he explained. But their smaller ships can get through. We'll need to fight them in space and in the air. President Laura, who now led the council, asked the question everyone feared. Can we win? Torrin stepped forward. The harvesters have never faced a united front before. Always they have found divided worlds, fighting among themselves. Your unity gives us hope. As the preparations continued, James often found himself working alongside Ren. The visitor had become more than an ally. He was a friend. On my world, Ren said one evening as they watched the sunset from the edge of Dome 7, We had skies of deep purple. I still miss it sometimes. Will Earth ever truly be home for your people? James asked. Ren was quiet for a moment. Home is not just a place. It's where you fight to protect what matters. 2 months later, the sensors detected the main harvester fleet entering the solar system. 7 massive ships, each larger than the biggest visitor vessel. They moved with terrible purpose toward Earth. In the Antarctic Command Center, humans and visitors worked together, monitoring the approaching threat. The shield was fully operational now, a thin blue energy field visible from space, surrounding the entire planet. They're sending a transmission, called out a technician. On the main screen appeared a figure that made James step back involuntarily. It was vaguely humanoid, but wrong in subtle ways. Limbs too long, skin like polished stone, eyes that seemed to look through rather than at the viewer. We claim this world and its resources, the harvester said in a flat voice. Surrender, and some will be preserved for study. President Laura stood before the camera. This world is not yours to claim. We reject your demands. The harvester seemed unmoved. Resistance has been noted. It changes nothing. The transmission ended. They'll be in attack range in 6 hours, Torrin announced. All defense forces should take position. James headed to the command ship in orbit, a combined human visitor vessel that would coordinate the defense. As his shuttle left Earth's atmosphere, he looked back at the planet. From space, the healing was clearly visible, green spreading, across continents that had been brown for generations. It was a world worth fighting for. The harvester attack began exactly as Ren had predicted. Their main ship stayed back, firing massive energy weapons that splashed harmlessly against the shield. But smaller vessels poured through, targeting the shield generator and defense stations. All units engage, James ordered. Protect the generator, at all costs. The battle in Earth's orbit was like nothing humans had ever experienced. Visitor ships moved with impossible speed, firing weapons that cut through harvester vessels. Human pilots flying new hybrid fighters showed a courage that surprised even the visitors. From his command post, James watched as the first wave of attackers was driven back. But more were coming. Their main ships are changing position, Ren reported. They're concentrating fire on one section of the shield. On the screens, James could see the shield beginning to flicker where the harvesters focused their attack. They're trying to create an opening, Torrin said. If they succeed, they'll send their harvesting equipment through. James made a quick decision. We need to take the fight to them, target their main ships. Our weapons can't penetrate their hulls, a human officer objected. Not from the outside, James agreed. But if we could get inside. Ren looked at him. You're suggesting a boarding action? It's never been done. Because no one's ever tried, James replied. We have the fast strike ships. We have the combined technology. We have surprise. The plan came together quickly. A small team would use a modified visitor ship to approach the lead harvester vessel. While the main battle distracted the enemy, they would breach the hull and plant explosive devices at critical points. I'll lead the strike team, James said. Ren nodded. And I will go with you. As they prepared for the mission, alarms sounded throughout the command ship. The shield was failing in one sector. Harvester vessels were pushing through. We need to go now, James said, before they establish a foothold. The strike team, 6 humans and 6 visitors, boarded the modified ship. As they launched toward the massive harvester vessel, James watched Earth growing smaller behind them. Somewhere down there, people were looking up at the battle in the sky, hoping for victory. The approach was more difficult than they had expected. Harvester defenses were unlike anything they had trained for. 2 of their escorts were destroyed before they reached the target. Their hull design is strange, the pilot reported. I can't find a normal docking point. Then make one, Ren suggested. They fired concentrated energy beams at one section of the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dark material began to glow and melt. We're in, the pilot called. The inside of the harvester ship was a nightmare of strange angles and pulsing organic technology. The team moved quickly, placing their explosive devices at what seemed to be power junctions. "They know we're here," one of the visitors warned as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. James looked at the timer. 2 minutes until detonation. We need to move. They fought their way back toward their ship, facing strange automated defenses and harvester crew members that moved with robotic precision. 3 of their team fell before they reached the breach point. As they reboarded their vessel and pulled away, James looked back at the massive harvester ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then explosions bloomed inside the dark hull, spreading outward in chains of fire. "It's working," someone shouted. The lead harvester ship began to list to one side, its weapons falling silent. The attack on the shield stopped as the other harvester vessels moved to protect their damaged flagship. "All forces, attack now," James ordered. "Hit them while they're regrouping." The combined human and visitor fleet surged forward. For the first time, the harvesters were on the defensive. Hours later, as the battle continued, James stood on the command deck with Ren and Torin. The remaining harvester ships were retreating, pulling back beyond the orbit of Mars. "They're not used to resistance," Torin said, "especially not from 2 species fighting together." "Will they come back?" President Laura asked over the communication link. James stood in President Laura's office, watching her face as she studied the images Mark had collected. The room was silent except for the soft hum of air filters. "You're certain about these readings?" she asked finally, looking up at Mark. "Yes, Madam President. The energy signatures at the edge of the solar system are growing stronger, and the Antarctic base." Mark pointed to thermal images showing massive power sources beneath the ice. "It's far beyond what they described to us." President Laura turned to James. "What do you recommend?" "We confront them directly," James said. "No diplomatic games. We need the truth." She nodded slowly. "Arrange a meeting with Torin, immediately." 2 hours later, they sat in the main conference room. Torin had arrived promptly when summoned, bringing Ren with him. The 2 visitors sat calmly across from the humans. "We value the partnership we've built," President Laura began, "but we've discovered concerning developments that you haven't shared with us." She nodded to Mark, who displayed the images of the Antarctic base and the energy readings from deep space. "Your Antarctic facility is much larger than a simple colony," James said, "and something is approaching our solar system. Something you're communicating with." Torin and Ren exchanged looks. For the first time since their arrival, the visitors seemed unsure. "We had hoped to wait longer before this discussion," Torin said finally, "until your world was stronger, until trust was deeper." "No more delays," James insisted. "Tell us the truth. All of it." Torin stood and walked to the window. Outside, children played in the new park area where real grass now grew. "We came to help you," he said. "That was not a lie. But we also came because we needed a new home, a refuge." "A refuge from what?" President Laura asked. Torin turned. "From those who destroyed our original world." The room fell silent. Ren spoke up, his voice deeper than usual. "Thousands of years ago, our civilization spread across many worlds. We were peaceful, focused on knowledge and growth. Then we encountered the harvesters." Torin activated a device on his wrist. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. A massive ship, black and angular, nothing like the smooth curves of visitor vessels. "The harvesters move from system to system," Torin explained. "They take what they need, resources, technology, even living beings for study. They leave nothing but empty worlds behind." "They destroyed your homeworld?" James asked. "Not directly," Ren answered. "We fought them and drove them back, but the war left our planet devastated. We became nomads, searching for new homes." Torin continued. "We discovered Earth 50 years ago. We saw what was happening, how you were destroying your own world through carelessness. We decided to wait, to see if you would correct your path." "But you didn't," Ren added. "And then we detected harvester scout ships at the edge of your system. They found Earth just as we did." President Laura stood up. "Are you saying Earth is in danger from these Harvesters? Extreme danger, Torin confirmed. They will arrive in approximately 6 months. James felt cold realization spread through him. The Antarctic base, it's not a colony, it's a defense system. Ren nodded. A planetary shield generator, the most powerful we've ever built. It can protect the entire Earth from their weapons. Why didn't you tell us from the beginning? James demanded. Because of fear, Torin said simply. Not our fear, yours. If we had arrived and said, your world is dying and alien destroyers are coming, would you have believed us? Or would you have seen it as a trick to take your world? Mark spoke up. So you cleaned our atmosphere and restored our ecosystems just to fight these harvesters? No, Ren said firmly. We restored your world because it was the right thing to do, but we also needed a healthy Earth to support the energy requirements of the shield. And he hesitated. We hoped to make this our new home, alongside humanity. After the harvesters are defeated. The humans exchanged looks. The room was silent. As they processed this information, finally President Laura asked, how dangerous are these harvesters? Can your shield stop them? Torin's face grew grave. They have destroyed hundreds of worlds. The shield will stop their initial attacks, but not forever. To truly defeat them, we will need to fight, your people and ours together. James looked at Ren. That's why you've been teaching us your technology. Not just for restoration, but to prepare us. Ren nodded. Your people learn quickly. Your scientists have already improved some of our designs. Together, we have a chance. President Laura called an emergency meeting of the World Council. For hours, they debated the visitors' revelations. Some believed it was all a lie to take control of Earth. Others accepted the warning and wanted to prepare. They've done everything they promised, one council member argued. Our world is healing because of them. But they kept this harvester threat secret, another countered. What else aren't they telling us? James listened to the arguments, his mind turning over every interaction with the visitors since their arrival. He thought of Ren's words about their lost home, of the sincere way Torin had spoken with the little girl who asked if they were really fixing Earth. As the debate continued, James slipped out of the meeting. He found Ren standing alone on an observation platform looking at the stars. If these harvesters come, James said, how bad will it be? Ren didn't look away from the sky. Worse than you can imagine. They will strip your world bare. Take samples of your species. Leave the rest to die slowly. You could have left, James said, warned us and moved on. Why stay and help? Ren turned to him then. Because we are tired of running. Tired of watching worlds die. And because, he seemed to search for words, because your world reminds us of what ours once was. Beautiful, full of life. James stood beside him, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, destruction was approaching. I believe you, James said finally. But many won't. They'll see this as a trick to control Earth. We don't need to control Earth, Ren replied. We need Earth to survive, just as you do. The next morning, the World Council announced its decision. They would continue working with the visitors, but with increased oversight of the Antarctic facility. Military representatives from all dome regions would inspect the shield technology. As James prepared to lead the first inspection team, Mark brought him troubling news. Our long-range scanners just picked up something, Mark said, showing James the readings. A small object crossed the orbit of Neptune, moving fast, too small to be a ship. A probe? James suggested. That's my guess. The harvesters are scouting. Ahead. James thought about what this meant. How long until it reaches Earth? At current speed, about 3 weeks. James looked out at the newly restored landscape around Dome 7. Trees swayed in the clean wind. Birds flew overhead. After decades of death, life was returning to Earth. And now a new threat was coming, one that could end everything. We need to see that shield, James said. And we need to know exactly how it works. Because if the visitors are telling the truth, we have less than 6 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. Mark nodded grimly. And if they're lying? James thought of Wren's face when he spoke of his lost world, of the sincerity he had sensed. Then we'll deal with that too. But first, we need to know what's really waiting for us under the Antarctic. Ice. As dawn broke over the healing earth, James prepared for the journey to the southern continent. Whatever the truth, he knew one thing with certainty. The peaceful first contact with the visitors had been only the beginning. What came next would determine the fate of both their peoples.